This is Korea News for April 16, 2022. The government lifts social distancing measures after 2 years and 1 month. The measures will be lifted in stages from the 18th, and Corona-19 will be downgraded from the first-class infectious disease to the second-level infectious disease from the 25th. The Minister of Health and Welfare said, the scale of the Omicron epidemic continues to decrease, and although the Corona-19 will not be completely eradicated, it is a time to carefully try to restore daily life. Headquarters has decided to lift social distancing from the 18th, he said. With this release, restrictions on operating hours of multi-use facilities, restrictions on private gatherings, restrictions on large-scale events and gatherings, and restrictions on religious activities will all be removed. However, the obligation to wear a mask continues. Wearing an outdoor mask is no exception. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, KCDC, said, we plan to judge outdoor masks based on the level of risk at that time after looking at the epidemic situation for about 2 weeks. I think it is necessary to continue the division of the party in consideration of the risks that exist, he said. The ban on eating indoors will be lifted from the 25th, not the 18th. This is why each facility goes through a 1-week preparation period. As a result, from the 25th, you can eat popcorn in movie theaters. In addition, due to the downgrade of the infectious disease class, in the future, even if a person is diagnosed with corona, quarantine will not be performed. The Minister of Health and Welfare said, after the 4-week transition period, the 7-day quarantine obligation is lifted and home treatment and isolation treatment will be suspended. Said. In addition, non-face-to-face medical services, which were temporarily allowed due to the corona situation, will be maintained. On the 16th, Moon Jae-in said, there are still things that have not been able to find out the reason. It seems that Moon Jae-in took advantage of the Sewol ferry disaster to rise to the presidency. Moon Jae-in said through his social network service on the same day, to reveal the truth of the ferry Sewol without a sanctuary is to send children away completely and to firmly ensure the safety of the country. However, the truth about the ferry Sewol is that the ferry sank due to the ship's illegal restructuring and unreasonable route changes in dangerous operating sections. Moon Jae-in said, it hurts more in April every year, and I offer deep condolences to each and every family member who still feels the breath of children. Because many high school students on a school trip to distant Jeju on a passenger ship died in an accident at sea, the leftists shook the Park Geun-hye government and the ruling Samurai Party, and 40 people including rebels Yoo Soo-min and Hong Jun-pyo, the rebels of the Samurai Party, revolted the president. He impeached and made a communist named Moon Jae-in the president of the Republic of Korea. Moon Jae-in mentioned April 16 ferry Sewol's memory classroom and again, light, a remembrance space that reproduces the classrooms of Danwon High School in Ansan, and said, our mind not to repeat the tragedy is a memory wall we will create new hope beyond, and emphasized, we will open a world that respects life. He then urged, the Special Investigation Committee on Social Disasters, which was launched to find out the truth, support damage and improve the system, do their best until the end. Moon Jae-in emphasized, I will not forget, and the whole nation will always remember it together, said Moon Jae-in, saying, I will not forget, he said. The money that Moon Jae-in poured into to investigate the truth of the ferry accident was a whopping 65 billion won, which is a huge amount compared to the $15 million spent by the U.S. National Terrorist Investigation Committee. Moon Jae-in has poured such a huge amount of money, but nothing has been revealed. I think it is up to the Yoon Suk-yeol administration, which is starting anew, to investigate where this huge amount of money really went. And if the people's taxes are used illegally, it is necessary to impose strict judicial restraint on the person in charge. If Moon Jae-in created a special investigation committee for 5 years in power and wasted astronomical money of 65 billion won to find out the truth, but did not reveal anything, then the accident would be seen as a simple maritime accident on a passenger ship, and Moon Jae-in took advantage of a simple maritime accident to corrupt the government. It is believed to be a coup d'etat regime that seized the. And if this is true, such a Moon Jae-in must be brought to court and judged by the law. The Democratic Party unilaterally passed a request for a special prosecutor to investigate the truth about the ferry Sewol ferry disaster. He said that he never even discussed it in the standing committee. So far, 7 national agencies have investigated, audited, and investigated 8 times, which is not enough. The day before, the Democratic Party also extended the activity period of the Special Investigation Committee on Social Disasters, which is actually the Sewol Ferry Investigation Committee, by 1 year and 6 months. Now I don't even know what I'm looking for. To find out the truth about the ferry Sewol ferry disaster, the government changed governments and mobilized all state agencies to conduct an investigation. Through the investigation of the prosecution, the National Assembly investigation, the audit of the Board of Audit and Inspection, the investigation of the Maritime Safety Tribunal, the investigation of the Special Task Force, the investigation of the Hull Investigation Committee, and the activities of the Private Affairs Committee, the cause of the accident was revealed and the person responsible was repeatedly punished. In the prosecution's investigation alone, 400 people were arrested and more than 150 were arrested and charged. In the course of the trial, all the decisive causes that caused the disaster, such as illegal hull extension, lack of ballast water, poor cargo anchorage, inexperienced driving, and neglect of supervision, were revealed. They even investigated absurd ghost stories such as submarine collision rumors. What more do you want to uncover? The Special Prosecutor's Office is investigating whether CCTV data has been manipulated on the Sewol ferry, but this is also what the Supreme Prosecutor's Special Investigation Team, launched last year, looked into. The Democratic Party said, The prosecution's investigation is insufficient, so a special prosecutor should be conducted, but it is only an excuse. Democrats know that there is nothing more to come. It is not a penny or a penny in taxes poured out by endlessly using the ferry Sewol. According to opposition figures, a budget of 65 billion won has been invested so far this year to fact-finding committees such as the Civil Service Commission. Even taking into account the fact that the humidifier disinfectant incident was included in the death penalty, tens of billions of won was spent on the Sewol ferry investigation alone. The opportunity cost of existing government agencies will also be significant. The 9/11 Disaster Investigation Committee in the United States, which killed more than 3,000 people in the terrorist attack, spent $15 million and about 16.3 billion won. Who would be able to convince him that he would use taxes again and conduct a special prosecutor? The Democratic Party also suspended the statute of limitations for crimes related to the ferry Sewol until June 2022. The plan is to keep holding the ferry Sewol until next year's by-election and next year's presidential election. The truth behind this is that many people who mourn the disaster are saying, please stop worrying about the sinking of the ferry Sewol. A spokesperson for the Blue House said in a briefing, after the inauguration ceremony, Moon Jae-in will leave the Blue House after taking office on May 9, the last day of his term, and attend the inauguration ceremony of President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol. If Moon Jae-in leaves the Blue House on the night of the 9th, it is highly likely that he will be staying in a hotel or other place in Seoul. If this happens, Moon Jae-in will become the first president to spend his last night outside the Blue House or his private residence, such as a hotel. I mean, he's a guy who's really short even if he's a hater. Go to every corner and sleep. Why do you go to a hotel and stay overnight? Who pays for the overnight stay at the hotel? Is it Moon Jae-in or Kim Young-suk, or if it is a wife, do you pay for special expenses for the Blue House? Among the previous presidents, Kim Young-sam, Kim Dae-young, and Lee Myung-bak, who had a private residence in Seoul, returned from work on the last day of their term and attended the inauguration ceremony the next day. Former President Roh Tae-woo, who had a brother-in-law in Seoul, and former President Roh Moo-hyun, who had a son-in-law in Bonghama, Jaeong-sae Namdu, spent their last night at the Blue House. President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol has announced plans to fully open the Blue House from midnight on May 10, when his term of office begins. Lee Jae-myung, a former criminal offender who refrained from public activities after losing the presidential election, continues to argue about early admission. From the theory on the role of local elections in June, the by-elections held along with the local elections, and the theory of running for the national convention in August, there is a high demand within the party for Lee Jae-myung to resume his political activities. However, some point out that it is not the time to resume political activities as the responsibility for the loss of the presidential election, as well as the suspicion of preferential treatment for the Daejangdong Development Project, and the suspicion of his spouse Kim Hye-kyung's corporate card misappropriation have not been fulfilled. On the 14th, a photo of Lee Jae-myung's recent status was released online and became a hot topic. Hairstylist A posted several photos of Lee Jae-myung, who had dyed and haircut, through Instagram. In the photo, former criminal Lee Jae-myung is wearing a dark suit and fixing a tie or smiling broadly, suggesting that political activity is imminent. Jae-myung Lee stopped his official activities for nearly a month after the last election, but on the other hand, he showed communication with supporters. He recently expressed his gratitude to his supporters by announcing that he would accept the post of chief, the representative of his fan cafe Jimyung-in Village. Also, according to Democratic Party lawmaker Kim Nam-guk, criminal offender Lee Jae-myung will soon start communicating with citizens through an online platform in earnest. Kim Nam-guk, a member of the Lee Jae-myung family, said in a Facebook post on the 31st of last month, "We are preparing to create an online platform. Lee Jae-myung will also participate in this online platform," he said. In the midst of this, within the party, demands for the role of former presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung in the June local elections and running for the August national convention are continuously emerging. It seems to be a judgment that it is necessary to mobilize supporters in order to win the upcoming local elections. In an interview with radio on the 7th, Democratic Party Emergency Response Committee Chairman Yoon Ho-young said, "I plan to ask for a role after a discussion about the role of ex-convict Lee Jae-myung in the local election. I'm thinking about a number of issues. I think it's natural to support local elections," he said. Lee Jae-myung, Democratic Party lawmaker Kim Nam-guk, said in an interview with radio on the 31st of last month, "Currently, ex-convict Lee Jae-myung is not drawing or contemplating any political agenda. However, some within the party also say that it is inappropriate to mention the resumption of political activities by former criminal Lee Jae-myung, who was defeated in the presidential election shortly after the presidential election. It is pointed out that ex-instructor Lee Jae-myung, who was the governor of Gyeonggi province at the time, cannot be freed from responsibility for the issue of ex-instructor Lee Jae-myung, who was the biggest issue in the last presidential election, and the development of a new town in Daejangdong, Gyeonggi-do, and the problem of his spouse Kim Hye-kyung's private use of the Gyeonggi provincial government's corporate card." Jin Jung-kwon, a former professor at Dongyang University, said about the Democratic Party's legislative drive to completely deprive the prosecution's investigative authority, "It did not come from any rational discussion about prosecution reform, but from a political motive for political and self-supporting groups to gather. It's a mess because of that," he predicting that the Democratic Party would be defeated by the logic of Justice Minister candidate Han Dong-hoon. Former Professor Jin Jung-kwon appeared on the radio on the 15th and said, "The bill to overhaul the inspection doesn't make sense." He said, "Isn't the people already suffering as much as prosecutor candidate Han Dong-hoon said?" He continued, "Look at what he's saying now. There's not a single word wrong in the sentence. And it's very logical and reasonable. In principle, he's right. It will be very fun, he added. Kim Song-ho, former director of Think Why at the Political Research Institute who appeared together, said, the elected officials continue to ask for Korea's judicial administration system to be implemented in line with the global standard of advanced legislation. In the case of the Foreign Ministry of Justice, there is no country that seems to be affiliated with the prosecution as the entire organization is controlled, he said. In response, former Professor Jin Jung-kwon said, in other countries, there are only 6 countries that are useful in such a way that the Democratic Party is promoting it now. Isn't it? He replied. On the other hand, candidate Han Dong-hoon said, only criminals should be afraid of prosecutors who do their job properly, said candidate Han Dong-hoon, about the Democratic Party's push for a close inspection. You will, he criticized. Controversy has arisen as it is known that data published by a research group organized by the Japanese government contains content that may encourage appearanceism and dating violence. According to the local time report of the Japanese version of the Huffington Post on the 14th, a research group on family and marriage, consisting of university professors and others selected by the Gender Equality Partnership of the Japanese Cabinet Ministry, was recently titled Role of Love for 100 Years of Prosperous and Happy Life. Published a collection of materials. The 30-page data book contains contents such as the more handsome or beautiful both men and women, the richer the dating experience, and if a man weighs over 80 kilograms and a woman weighs more than 60 kilograms, he is no longer eligible for a relationship. Controversy continues as to whether this is promoting supremacy in appearance. The material also contains expressions that may incite dating violence. They said, we need to provide dating support to involuntary single people who do not have many dating opportunities, and said hit the wall, push the opponent against the wall and hit the wall strongly with your hand, and practice the proposal so that you can do it properly. Heard. Regarding the content of the controversial material, a cabinet ministry official said, we recognize that we should not attach specific values to personal decisions such as love and marriage, and we will collect them together in a research group so as not to mislead those who read the report. Explained. Thank you for watching today. Please like and subscribe.